Here's what I know is true. Most weight loss plans are one size fits all. So frustrating. They don't take into account each person's individual needs, which could mean dietary restrictions, medical issues, or other personal needs. That's why you're going to love Noom. It's built for your psychology and your biology, meeting you where you are. Noom's personalized programs feel more sustainable than any other, more restrictive weight loss programs. And also, it doesn't shame you when you choose to treat yourself, and that's important. I like this company because it's got a psychology and biology-based approach and a super easy app to use with lots of great features, including daily lessons, coaching, and flexibility. I think it's your time to start. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. Based on 3.5-year study of actively engaged Noom users with minimum BMI of 25. Individual results may vary. Visit Noom.com for more information. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. You can find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. You order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days, without ever leaving home. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. And plus, you get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your own landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. For example, I knew that I was in the growing zone 10 and I picked out the most perfect lemon tree. It's so cute. It makes me so happy every time I walk outside. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to this show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code Kate Casey at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code Kate Casey at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code Kate Casey. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use Kate Casey to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and welcome back for this Saturday series episode. My guest today is Paula Froehlich. She is a New York Times best-selling author of the novel Mercury in Retrograde. Now, from 1999 to 2009, she was the deputy editor of the New York Post's highly influential gossip column, Page Six. Now, Page Six is not only just an influential leader in celebrity and entertainment news, it was basically my Bible for countless years. I still read it every single day. And when I was mentioned in a New York Post Page Six item, I thought I was going to cry my face off. It is an absolute must read and has been for a long time. And Paula was there for so many of the years that had some of the most iconic celebrity stories. So during her tenure at Page Six, she was seen by millions of viewers as a correspondent for Entertainment Tonight and The Insider. And then she appeared as a guest on The View, Real Time with Bill Maher, The Today Show, and Good Morning America. But prior to the New York Post, she was a financial reporter covering interest rate swaps and over-the-counter derivatives for Dow Jones Newswires and Institutional Investor. And you're like, how did that work out? And I know, we get to the bottom of it. But she's also written for Playboy, Marie Claire, Newsweek, Digiday, and The Daily Beast. She became the editor-in-chief of Yahoo Travel in March of 2014 after a stint as a senior writer at Newsweek, and then 4 years as a freelance journalist writing about politics, travel, and pop culture. Her unique vision for the page turned into a must-read destination for anyone that was interested in being inspired, entertained, and motivated to engage the world and suck the marrow out of life. In short months, Yahoo Travel went from primarily a booking site to one of the largest travel content sites in the world. Then she had a video series, Abroad, which was one of the first female-hosted travel adventure series of its kind. And in it, she would invite viewers to explore the unknown and discover the unexpected in both familiar and exotic locales around the world. Her motto has always been, be bold, be brave, reclaim yourself. Now she is an editor at News Nation and still has that great love of great stories. I was thrilled to finally get a chance to talk to her because I feel like we've worked and moved in similar circles, but never had a chance to chat. So I was so excited to chat with her in this episode. So here is my interview with Paula. Paula, the weird thing about this is that I feel like we've been friends in my head for years.
Well, we have run in the same circles.
Yes.
Or at least we did from 99 to 2009 when I was at page 6. Then
For sure.
Kind of took a hiatus, traveled the world for a good 10 years, and now I'm back.
And now you're back. I love this story. You're originally from Leeds, but you grew up in the nasty natty, Cincinnati.
I did. That's how I can roll. My parents were teachers in England, and it was before Margaret Thatcher did the X'd out naturalized citizenship. So I have a British passport. We then moved to Saudi Arabia very briefly, and then ended up in Cincinnati. I sometimes look at my mom and I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah, how did that happen? What made her decide in Ohio?
My dad is from there. And even though they divorced, she left him in Saudi. She was like, I have had enough.
Yeah.
I'm taking the kids. She actually went to go work for the Army for 3 months to get our passports back. Because just FYI, in Sharia law, if you sign a contract and dad had a year contract, they take your passport for the life of the contract. So she had 2 kids, me and my sister. And she was like, this is horrific. And went to go work for the Army and got our passports back within 3 months. It was like, peace out, Bob. I'll see you later. I'll see you back in the States. And she moved back to Cincinnati because she knew my dad would always come back to Cincinnati. His family is there. They're a very strong family. And she also thought, something happens to me, his family will take care of the kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was his family British?
No, God, no. His family are I was super close to my aunt and uncle. They just died, unfortunately. But, no, they were from the west side of Cincinnati. A little bit of redneck.
Well, also, like, how old were you at this point? Because I would think that would be a huge culture shock.
I was about 3.
Okay.
2.5, something, listen, put it this way. I think my first memory is of goats eating garbage because the first time I saw goats eating garbage, I was like, this is familiar.
Right. Well, how in the world did you end up in New York City then? Like, how did you go from Ohio to New York City?
Oh, it's random. So my mom has always had a big rule, which is I will never give you a cent, but there's always a plane ticket home. Okay. So New York City, I don't know if y'all know this, but it is one of the only cities that you can live in the United States without a car. True. So if I was going to have a career and I wanted to do journalism, I had to end up here. Like after I went to college at Emory, got a full ride. Love you, Emory. And then moved to London for 2 years, worked for The Guardian, did kind of super tramp, took the long way home, India, Nepal, Thailand, ended up in LA for 3 months. But as you know, there is no hope of doing anything in LA if you ain't got no car.
Right.
So I moved to New York City and went right back into journalism.
Well, do you think that your parents sort of set this tone, this curiosity of the world?
Well, yeah, they did, but it was also like, I ain't staying in Cincinnati.
Yeah. I can understand.
That was the burning driver for me for the first 10 years. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Cincinnati. I'm proud of where I come from. I have very good friends there still from the time that I was 5. But it's not my town anymore.
Well, when you get to New York, at that point, you had a bit of experience writing for outlets that were much more news and finance driven. But you end up at page 6. And this is when
that was, by the way, it was a long and weird road getting there. So I first came to New York and nobody would hire me because they were like, The Guardian, what is that? The world was much smaller then. It was before the internet. And so I ended up working 4 jobs. I think I was a hostess at a place called the Lobster Club. I lost Diane Sawyer's coat once. She was lovely. And, I worked all over. It was anything. And I worked at the Queen's Gazette at night. I did anything. And then I landed a job doing interest rate swaps and over-the-counter derivatives for Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal. And so from there, I met someone who knew someone who was like, oh, you'd be great at page 6. And I was like, what is that?
At that point, you didn't really follow page 6.
God, no. I was just running to stand still. Girl, do you know what a derivative is? I was just all consumed with my job. And then I met Richard, and he was like, well, Richard Johnson, my boss, who would become my boss. And he was like, why should I give you a job? You do financial stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, I figured that out. I can figure out your stuff. And I got the job.
So walk me through the first couple weeks of that job. So it's already like a fish out of water. And you're doing something that at the time, I mean, when I explain to people, everybody could that was the first thing you would do when you wake up is to see what was written about in page 6. And you've got like a walking target on your back. People are obsessed with what you guys cover. So what is it like those first few weeks?
It was odd. It was uncomfortable. Richard, God bless him, was a very hands-off boss. So the first day I was like, hey, I'm here. And he's like, okay, maybe you could call someone. I'm like, great, who? But yeah, the first week, and it was right before Christmas. I think I started December 15th. So there were still some parties going on. I think my first party was for a movie with Harvey Keitel and Kate Winslet.
Wow.
And I just kept doing it, all with the fear of don't go back to Ohio. So it worked out. It worked out pretty well, actually. And I think it was also because I was never enamored with celebrities.
Yeah, that probably helped.
Again, I credit my mother, to be blunt. She would always say, we all SHIT in the same pot. What's the problem? And the only way that you should ever judge anyone is what comes out of their mouth and how they behave. Mm-hmm. And she also we were not raised in a celebrity friendly household. We did not, the only magazines in our house were Time and Newsweek.
Right.
We were broke, but we were educated. So it wasn't such a big deal for me. It was just like, okay, this is just another thing to report on.
Well, it probably helped you immensely and people could feed off that energy. But you have to kind of get acclimated to a weird culture where there are all these power dynamics. You have to know the material, the movies, like who are the power players. And you have to finagle yourself into spaces that are probably not easy to get into. So how did you figure out how to do so? And what were some of the things that you found that were most helpful?
Well, one of the things that was most helpful, I've been very lucky to have very supportive women around me at all times. So even the woman who had my job before me, when I left, she gave me a list of about 5 people that I had to call and that they would help.
Wow.
They did. And it was publicists, but they were very good and they were very helpful. And I appreciated her and them. And you kind of figure out what's going on. You see what people say. You see what they don't say. I remember, but I also had a bit of a temper. Again, I was 25 when I started. And I remember being chewed out by Tommy Mottola.
Oh, wow.
Him dead. And that was around the time he was head of Sony, super powerful. He was splitting up with Mariah Carey. And I had a story that he didn't like, which is basically any story he didn't give because he used to drop a lot. And this story was very pro Mariah. I mean, at the end of the day, Mariah was 17, 18 when she met him. And he put her in basically a gilded cage in some mansion out in somewhere, Jersey.
That's
or
right.
Long. And, I had people watch her all the time. And she was just trying to break free. And I think the story was something about, she had that album, I think it was Glitter. And it was the movie and the album coming out at the same time. And because she was with Sony, with Tommy, he had the whole album. And I remember the story was he ended up giving the beats and the beats, everything underlying the words of the album to Jennifer Lopez. And Jennifer's, they beat out an album right before Glitter came out, and her album went straight to the top. I forget which one, but it was early 2000s. And Mariah was kind of left holding the bag with an album she could not put out.
Wow.
And then the movie bombed. Then she redid glitter really quickly and it didn't do well. That also bombed. It was a really hard time in her life. But I remember Tommy calling me up and screaming. He was cursing at me. You effing little B. You think you're great. And I remember thinking, I think I'm so great. I just don't want to get fired. Like it was like 4 or 5 weeks on the job. I'm like,
wow, 4 to 5 weeks in? Oh my gosh.
He was like, how dare you? You see who effing talks to you when you lose this job. You think you have so many friends. And I went, yo, you know what? Don't talk to me like that. And he was
good for you.
You can't talk to me like that. He was like, F you. I said, you know what? I'm done. And he goes, what? I said, I had friends before this job and I had friends after this job. I don't really care. F you. And hung up. Then he called back. He was like, okay, we'll talk. But, there are a lot of people who are, big old bullies.
Did you have to record conversations? No.
Hey, girl, this is, again, 99, 2000. Yeah. There was no way to record anything. You had the big old hand phones scribbling away.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I had witnesses because everyone in the newsroom was like, what? But,
Looking for a weight loss solution that actually works? Weight Loss by Hers provides access to GLP-1 medications with personalized care to help you hit your goals. Hers is transforming women's healthcare by providing access to affordable weight loss treatment plans delivered straight to your door if prescribed. Hers offers a holistic weight loss program with personalized solutions including compounded GLP-1 weekly injections featuring the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy or oral medication kits. So if you've been struggling with your weight loss journey, it's time to find the best option that works for you through Hers. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/KKC. That's forhers.com/KKC for your personalized weight loss treatment options. forhers.com/KKC. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased. I love the look of luxury, but knowing that I got it at a great price. And I feel like you're like me too. And that's why I know you're going to love Quince. Quince is my go-to for luxury essentials at affordable prices. I get DMs all the time. Where did you get that sweater? I'm telling you, I got it at Quince. You know why? They offer high quality items at prices within reach. And the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So they do this by partnering directly with top factories. So Quince cuts the cost of the middleman and then passes the savings on to us. And the best part, it only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And who doesn't love that? In fact, the thing you need to get right now are the toasted almond silk pajamas. It's a beautiful gift for someone in your life or just for yourself. So give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/KKC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/KKC to get your free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/KateCasey. Well, I did think about that often. Like I would read something and think, you're going to go out there into the city and are people going to approach you because they want you to kill a story? And were you ever in fear?
Yeah, sometimes people would. I mean, it was more like we would just go out. I mean, I didn't care. I didn't want to be friends with these people. I have my own friends.
Right.
I'm just doing a job. And if some of them turned out to be decent, bonus, brownies, let's go. But it was just like, oh, I don't want to get fired. Oh, but it was a lot of fun. I worked there from 25 to 35 formative years. And, it was before the internet again. And I had this crazy, weird open pass to New York that I don't know if there is that anymore.
Yeah. Well, you probably get, what are some of like the best parties that you were invited to or experiences?
Probably one of the best parties I ever went to. Or 2 movies that had the best parties. One was for a really horrible movie called Coyote Ugly.
Oh, I remember it. Yeah.
I think they were both at Roseland Ballroom. And Coyote Ugly, they had turned the entire ballroom into one big Coyote Ugly bar.
Where like standing on the bar with the bras.
People were doing shots. It was crazy. And the next one was Planet of the Apes, where they turned all of Roseland into the Planet of the Apes. And I was like, this is hilarious. And it is amazing what people got up to behind those ferns and fronds.
Behind the ferns. Were there any celebrities that you'd kind of turn to each other in the office and go, oh God, they want me to cover this again, or just so thirsty for attention?
That was the thing about Page Six. Nobody said, go cover this. You just covered it. There were some who you were like, oh God, like you knew Courtney Love was on a bender when you picked up your phone and all your voicemail was full.
Right.
You're like, I don't know what, oh God, I got 50 voicemails from Jesus, you know. So there were some people who you're like, oh, you know, but, you know, or there were some people you didn't necessarily really want to cover, even though you did, like Whitney Houston, because her fans were rabid. You know, The first time we basically said Whitney was on drugs and had effed up and was on stage flopping around. Again, this is before the internet and cell phones. And we had a video and we're like, oh my God, that's horrific. You know, I mean, they would do stuff like, it was crazy. It was a little Scientology where they would jam up the fax machines, jam up the phones, then call the editor. Nobody could get any work done. But it was true. So what are you going to do?
Were there any celebrities that were just untouchable? Like you could not get access to them? You would never get a response for them from their teams?
People usually responded because here's the deal. If you don't respond, that means I can write what I've got. So the response was not that. It wasn't so much celebrities. I would say that there were a couple billionaires we could not go near. So, and not to name names, but there were a couple, I'm thinking of 3 right now, who had so much money. They would just sue at a drop of a hat. So you could say, Bling Blong was walking down in sightings. Well, you know, a little thing we had. Like, Bling Blong walking down the street with, you know, a bag and a purse. And the lawyers would say, Bling Blong wasn't in New York. Bling Blong, you know, you have to retract, blah, blah, blah. But the lawyers would have to get involved. By the time it got thrown out, because it was frivolous and ridiculous, you know, the company would have spent $50,000 on lawyers and the other person would have been like, who cares? You know, so it became, is it worth it?
Yeah, is it worth it? Were there any stories that you can kind of look back in reflection that really just pierced through mainstream media, like became huge stories that derived from a Page Six item?
Most stories derived from a Page Six item. We were the ones actually reporting. Most of the magazine stories at the time based it off of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, most at the time, anyone who wanted to break through had to appear on Page Six in some way to get some sort of buzz.
Well, doesn't that make it more interesting? Because if there's an actor that, for example, during that period of time, maybe like Vanity Fair, a cover would be like a huge coup. They wouldn't they want to work with you to get themselves in Page Six?
Listen, Paris Hilton started on Page Six. It was, you know, she would have been absolutely nowhere without Page Six.
Yeah. Anybody else that you can think of, they would not be anywhere without Page Six?
Quite a few of them. If you wanted to break through, you had to be a smaller level and then break through. You had to be someone like a Natasha Lyonne, who broke through on there. Oh God, I'm blanking on this other woman's name, but there were a bunch of them. You know, I mean, Ben Affleck certainly got a lot of ink from us and certainly got a lot of jobs after that. However, he was also well agented up, but a lot of agents and managers and publicists would look at Page Six. We did have, there's Bobby Zero. Bobby Zero, this old school publicist who'd always be like, hey, can you put this guy in? He was the PS guy on Charlie's Angels. And we're like, oh God. All right, what do you got to trade us? You know.
Is there a lot of trading? Like an agent from a big agency would say, can you drop this item and then we'll give you access to so-and-so?
I mean, that happened.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to weigh you got to weigh the cost benefit analysis, you know?
How do you think media has changed since those days when you were running the desk.
It's just become obsequious. It's really just so, the only really interesting stuff right now is going on the internet, except for on News Nation.
True.
Where I work. Amazing. But yeah, it's just become obsequious. It's like People magazine is where publicists go to drop their side. The other stuff is just kind of like, aren't they great? Or look at this dresses. Nobody's really telling the truth right now.
I can imagine that there's a point of which you kind of got burned out. And I know that you had this love of travel. So talk to me about that transition when you left there.
I absolutely got burned out. 2009, I wrote a novel, Mercury In Retrograde, still in print maybe. And I quit. I was just like, I'm done. I became too cynical. It was just, you felt like hamster wheel, like, oh, here we go again. Okay. And then you started looking at someone and being like, I know what's going to happen to you. Oh boy, call the rehab center. You're going to need it in 2 years. Or, oh boy, what about that? And it's just not a nice way to think or live your life and have no compassion or empathy. And I just quit. And I remember just being at home being like, oh, I wrote a pilot, which actually MTV bought. Unfortunately, it didn't go to air. It was called Grits. And it was about my time. The 1 year I went to a convent in Kentucky to graduate after I left public school in Cincinnati. And it was hilarious. Unfortunately, the head of MTV at the time, I think, got fired. And so all of his projects went with him. And I was just kind of like, what the hell am I doing with my life? And I was like, God, when was the last time you were cool or felt good or felt like yourself? And I was like, oh, and I was traveling in India. So I packed up some bags and went to Africa.
And how long were you there for?
No, I think that first trip was 3 weeks. Then I came back and then I just kept traveling. And I did pieces for Playboy. I went to Iraq for Playboy. I did Vietnam in between, the zone in between North and South Vietnam, which still, unfortunately, has quite a few bombs. I did the Ho Chi Minh Trail for Playboy, and I did Colombia, the drug thing down there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, might have heard. And then I went to Afghanistan for Newsweek, and I would travel all over and find interesting stories. It wasn't necessarily, I might have been in some war zones, but it wasn't war reporting. Mm-hmm. So Afghanistan, yes, there was a war on, but these people were trying to start a ski industry. Iraq, yes, there was a war, but we had spent $3 billion with a B of our tax dollars on tourism. So I got on the only tourist bus going in Iraq during the war. It was all very odd, but fabulous.
This new year, why not let Audible expand your life by listening? Explore over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and exclusive Audible originals that'll inspire and motivate you. Tap into your well-being with advice and insight from leading professionals and experts on better health, relationships, career, finance, investing, and more. Maybe you want to kick a bad habit or start a good one. If you're interested in learning how to master your emotions and hearing scientifically backed advice for using your emotions as a tool, may I suggest Shift by psychologist and bestseller author Dr. Ethan Kross? Trust me, listening on Audible can help you reach the goals you set for yourself. Start listening today when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Well, if you think about the period, those 3 chapters, so the beginning days of journalism, writing for The Guardian, and some Dow Jones, and then you go to page 6, and then you have this 3rd chapter where you're writing from all over the world. Yeah. What do you think is the common thread in terms of your window and what made you a unique writer?
Honestly, it was all I cared about was journalism. I just wanted to tell stories and find interesting stories. I've never been one to just be like, oh, let's rewrite a press release. There's always so many more questions. Like, wait a minute, what? It's just, there's a lot of things that are just absurd, and I revel in absurdity.
And it also seems like that Page 6 job really helped kind of harness that skill of, I'll push through any door. I won't take no for an answer. I'm not impressed by anybody.
It wasn't just Page 6. You don't understand. When I was doing interest rate swaps and over-the-counter derivatives, I didn't know what a bond was.
Yeah.
And my boss says the very first job before Dow Jones was at Institutional Investor Newsletters Derivatives Week.
Mm-hmm.
And they said,
I
don't know what a derivative is. And they said, you know what? You got 3 weeks to figure it out or you're fired. And I went, I will not be fired. And I called every single person at every single bank who worked at derivatives at the time, which were not many. And I was like, lunch, dinner, drinks, let's go. Yeah. So, but the traveling led me. I was then the editor-in-chief of Yahoo Travel for a couple years. And I had my travel show, Abroad. And that did really well. I got like 750,000 views a week on that show. And it was just doing random stuff. It wasn't like, here's the beach, I'm in a bikini, woo! It was doing all sorts of stuff. It was solo female travel when no one thought women traveled alone.
I wanted to ask you about that because at that point in time, the amount of travel shows obviously far less than what we see now. But what was that like to be a woman traveling abroad and writing some of these pieces, which are going to make people uncomfortable? How did it help, and maybe how did it hinder?
It was probably the most frustrating part of my life, and I'll tell you why. Because the travel was fine. I've never had a problem with traveling. What was frustrating is that we were seeing the numbers and we were seeing success, yet the old white men who ran all the television stations were like, no, women like weddings and beaches.
Right.
Literally, someone told me that. And I was like, oh. Or, no, you got to have a girlfriend. Women can't support. A show can't be supported by just one woman. And there was Samantha. God, why am I blanking on Sam's last name?
I remember her, Samantha. Yep.
And she's had her travel show, but it was on PBS, which means she had to get her own funding for it.
Oh.
And no, they've never, the networks and TV has never been kind to female travelers because they don't believe it's possible.
Well, also this by
the way, even when you
being unsafe
numbers, you show them the numbers of who's traveling, the amount of money women were spending, the numbers I was getting did not matter. Their guts said they just want men.
Did they say anything about women traveling on their own too? Like women don't do that, suggesting that women are afraid to travel by themselves?
Honey, they said it all. And I said, I've been around the world and the only people traveling by themselves are women over 40.
Wow.
And it's like in their 20s, But it is funny because, as women get older, they become much more independent.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they're like, I've raised my kids. I've done the family. I got married. I may or may not be divorced. And now I'm going to do what I want to do. Even if nobody else wants to do it with me. Perfect. I've lived my life for everyone else, and now I'm going to go do what I like to do. Whereas men, every now and again, you would see men on these trips, but they would always be with their wives. Men have, especially older men over 40 or 50, cannot travel solo.
That's interesting.
No, they can. I'm sure there are some.
Right.
Just look at statistics. Men, as they get older, get much more codependent. Everything that women are made fun of for in their 30s, men turn into in their 40s and 50s. The rate of remarriage for women after they get divorced is not very high. Men, pretty high. It's kind of like, it's
wild, but it's so true. And it makes a ton of sense. How do you move from there into News Nation?
COVID. So I was doing fine. COVID happened, and I was kind of like, oh, damn. Okay. I got very lucky. I worked with David Rhodes, who's now head of Sky in England, and he was launching Talk TV for Rupert Murdoch in the UK. So I helped him launch it. I cast and created shows from my couch in Soho. And that year was coming to an end. He was leaving News Corp to go to Sky. And I was like, I need a job, man. And randomly, I have Katie Couric to thank for bringing me to News Nation. This is so bizarre because Katie Couric's book had come out. And in the book, she had written about Ashley Banfield. I
remember.
And she basically said, Ashley wanted her job, and that, Ashley's dad had gone out and told people she wanted the job. And then there was this whole media fracas because Ashley was like, actually, that's not what happened. My dad was in a mental care home because he was suffering from dementia. And a New York Post reporter called him and said, hey, how do you feel about your daughter being in Afghanistan? He said, I wish you would get a nice desk job like Katie Couric. And Katie had, in her mind, had made it into something else. Anyway, Katie helped usher Ashley out of NBC in probably the not nicest way ever. Girl power. And I remember thinking, where's Ashley now? And Ashley was at this new network called News Nation. And it was headed up by this guy named Michael Korn, who had been at GMA and ABC for many years. He's a legend in the industry. And I was like, I want to work with that guy. So I called a friend who's his best friend, and we got an intro, and that's how it happened.
That's amazing.
And yeah, again, it's, who you know, how you treat people, it always matters.
Mm-hmm. You've been able to work in so many different buckets. You've written your own books. You have created this.
By the way,
this
back
travel
when people
niche.
read books.
I know. No, I still read books. I love books.
Yeah.
I know people who listen to my show love books too. And then you worked in the financial news space, and now you're at News Nation. Is there any bucket that you still really want to work in? Something that you haven't done yet that you really would love to go for?
I would like to really explore the internet more. So I do a lot of stuff on Instagram at PFRO, PFRO, like J-Lo, but not. But, I'd like to have some more guidance on YouTube. And really, because, I love TV, I love News Nation. It's really my only regret in my career, and I've said this before, is I didn't meet Michael Korn 20 years ago, so I could have worked with him for 2 decades instead of 4 years. The issue with TV, though, is you only have this little amount of time. You've got a 3 to 4 minute segment in which you have to cover 2 to 3 stories. So you better spit it out. Bye-bye. But there's a lot more going on, and there's a platform for something like this. We're on YouTube where you could be like, oh my God, let's tell the backstory, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would be interested in figuring that space out, which I have not yet. Granted, I have not given it a lot of time, but
I think you're right, though, because I think about all the places you've been and all the people you've met, and there is a backstory to it. And there's a need to tell the elongated version. We get such snippets because of social media, especially like a TikTok. Things like to be shown in these short snippets, and you don't really get any meat on the bone. So there is interest in that. And I think that would be a good space for you to just sort of expand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I'd like it. If anyone out there wants to help me with YouTube, let me know.
Oh, they will. And they will. Well, tell everybody where they can get your book and where they can follow you and just catch up on all the stuff.
It's funny because there's a couple of books. The first book I did in 2003 was called It. Secrets of the Rich and Famous That'll Take You to the Top. It was hilarious. It was supposed to be an article for New York Magazine, and then my friend who was editor got fired, so I turned it into a book and paid off my student loans.
Nice.
See, lemons to lemonade. Then the second book was Mercury in Retrograde. And then I did a chapter in a book called, ironically at the time, it was called The 10 Habits of Highly Successful Women. And I had one chapter, so it was one habit. And I thought it was hilarious because at the time I was not very successful. I was like, I'm broke. I'm living off of savings. Damn it. But I did write an interesting chapter, which now it would have sold gangbusters today. I called it Controlled Burn, about how you sometimes have to burn your life down to replant and start over healthier.
Well, there's your first piece.
Oh, well, yeah. That was, if y'all need it, it's a pretty good chapter.
Well, no, I think that's what you do. You start off with the YouTube.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Could do. So there's that. But if anyone wants to get a hold of me, I am always checking Instagram at PFRO, PFRO.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my great guest, Paula, and remind you to click subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review and join the Facebook group Reality Life with KKC. Check out all new episodes. Again, you got to make sure that you're subscribed to do that, to get it into your queue every day. And then also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KKCCA, TikTok, it's KKC, and Twitter and Threads and Blue Sky at KKC. Bonus episodes by going to my Patreon, patreon.com/KKC.
At 24, I lost my narrative, or rather it was stolen from me. And the Monica Lewinsky that my friends and family knew was usurped by false narratives, callous jokes, and politics. I would define reclaiming as to take back what was yours. Something you possess is lost or stolen, and ultimately you triumph in finding it again. So I think listeners can expect me to be chatting with folks, both recognizable and unrecognizable names, about the way that people have navigated roads to triumph. My hope is that people will finish an episode of Reclaiming and feel like they filled their tank up. They connected with the people that I'm talking to and leave with maybe some nuggets that help them feel a little more hopeful. Follow Reclaiming with Monica Lewinsky on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Reclaiming early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.